I suppose we should really talk about some football at some point, shouldn't we, gents? I know there is no real football, say, over the next 2 weeks, but something I thought we could kick off maybe with, and Steve, you touched on England earlier on, and you touched on the fact that there's no Liverpool players whatsoever in that England squad. Now, you'll have a lot of Liverpool fans going, great. That's exactly what we want. We don't want any chance of injuries happening. But then, and another point, there is a valid argument to be made about, well, surely Trent is the best right back that England have at their disposal.
I guarantee you that Jurgen Klopp isn't saying great that none of his players are with England. I guarantee that. I read something that they'd given all the players they expected to go off with internationals a bit of time off last week, and Trent was one of them. So they were fully expected him to go, I think. And you've got a young lad who's been a fixture, if not maybe replicated form for his club, for his country, but certainly a fixture in the squad and near enough in the side. All of a sudden, relegated to fourth or fifth choice, right back in a position that's pretty competitive. And I just first of all, I don't buy the argument that it's good. Like I just said, it's not good. You've got to pick a 22-year-old lad up, off the ground, because he'll have wanted to go, and this puts his him playing in the Euros in massive jeopardy now, doesn't it? Because this is the last big meetup before the Euros. But the other thing is just the reasoning was just unbelievable for me. First of all, there are players in there. I mean, he said he picked it on form. Southgate said he picked it on form. Right.
Can I interject for 1 second, just to give an outside perspective? I read a really interesting piece, maybe you've read it, Steve, as well, on The Athletic about this situation. And they talk about when Gareth Southgate means form, he means how he's impacted the games he's played for England. Not regards, I know he spoke about his form at Liverpool, but this specific article, which was very well written and very well balanced, I actually found, kind of pointed out that his attributes aren't as well suited to the way that Gareth Southgate sets up his kind of five at the back method with England, and that he's not getting the same out of him that Jurgen Klopp would. Now, that could be managerial, that could be to do with the system, but I just wanted to throw that in there as a bit of a devil's advocate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of three at the back anyway. So I think with the players that we've got, we shouldn't be playing that system anyway. I think it's a horribly negative system. But yeah, I that's the only kind of argument that I can get a little bit on board with. But then when you look at the players that are in, and Reece James is in and out for Chelsea, isn't really starting, maybe like 1 in 3 for Chelsea. Kieran Trippier has been banned for the best part of the last 4 months for that betting thing. He's only played 4 games. And then you look at the kind of wider squad. I know a lot of Everton fans are really hacked off that Michael Keane's not in there. And, Eric Dier is, for example. Eric Dier's barely played a game for 2 months. Just the arguments are just not right. And Gary Lineker said it on Twitter. I think it was Gary Lineker. He said, you can't imagine approaching the Euros and thinking that Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't one of your best 23 players. He should be in that squad somewhere, to work with the system, to work with the coaches, the management, the players. It's just, I was really disappointed and not at all pleased, as some Liverpool fans were saying, because I just thought it was ridiculous.
And Jack, I want to come to you on this, and I want to start with something Steve did say there about Eric Dier, and I wonder if Dier's inclusion may be because of the kind of Jimmy Milner-esque factor that he can be utilised in different systems and different positions. Now, I'm not saying he's better than Michael Keane as a centre-back. I would say Everton fans have a fair shout there as to why they're annoyed, but I just wonder what you think of the Trent thing, and if you think maybe that's part of Southgate's reasoning.
Well, firstly, Eric Dier is in the squad because Southgate has his favourites. It's as simple as that. And secondly, Southgate has dropped Trent because he doesn't know how to use Trent. And he's never known how to use Trent, and that's been obvious from previous times gone by in terms of Trent in the England squad. We've seen him use Trent in centre midfield at times because it doesn't seem like he knows how to use him at right back. And like you said, it may be because he feels as though Trent doesn't fit the system or whatever. But I do agree with Steve. The form idea is ridiculous. You've also got Carl Walker in that squad, who has been for the large part of the season replaced by João Cancelo. I know he's still had quite a lot of game time, but he's not exactly in form himself. And Trent, though he hasn't had the greatest of seasons, the last few games he's looked a lot better. And I've said before, I believe Trent is one of, if not the best right back in world football. Yes, it's a position in the England squad where there are lots of options. A lot of people are annoyed that Trent's been dropped and Aaron Wan-Bissaka's not in the squad. There's a lot of English right backs out there. You've got Matty Cash, who I'm a big fan of too. Luke Aylin's another one that's been spoken of. That's Leeds, of course. You've got Tariq Lamptey. There's a lot of good right backs in England, but nonetheless, like Steve said, for me, it's absolutely absurd that Trent is not in that England squad. But in my opinion, I believe it is a good thing. I think he gets what is a well-needed rest now. And you say, Stephen, it's absolutely right. It may have given his confidence a hit, but as a professional athlete, and as Trent Alexander-Arnold, the youngster that he is, the personality that he is, I expect him to go, well, I want to be on that plane in the summer or that bus if it ends up being in England. And therefore, I'm going to have to work harder between now and the end of the season to get back in Southgate's plans. And that can only help us.
I hope he does. I hope he does have that attitude. And there's no reason to think he won't. He's obviously, he's a good kid. He's got, good attitude, and he, I'm sure he will take that approach. But there's a good reason why Jurgen Klopp, he absolutely loves his players going away to internationals. Within reason, doesn't he? He doesn't like them going all over the world at funny times, but he likes the idea. He likes the confidence boost that it gives his players. He knows the value of his players being called up for internationals, and I think it's like Jack just said, and like I was saying before, just ridiculous. But it is a bonkers position, isn't it? Going back. I remember, going back to kind of the mid-90s, you were looking at Danny Mills or Gary Neville. That was your option, wasn't it? And then now, even look, beyond, what we said, we've got, like Jack said, you've got Luke Ayling, you've got Matty Cash, you've got Wan-Bissaka, and then even beyond that, you guys like Max Aarons as well at Norwich, who everyone's got a lot of high hopes for. So it's a well stocked. I mean, it's not a place to be if you're a right back. Actually, is it? An English right back? It isn't really not really a good spot to be in. But yeah, I mean, I hope the rest benefits him. I just think his pride will have been hurt and his confidence will have taken a big hit. And we know that probably Liverpool's players aren't flying high confidence wise at the moment. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see how it all kind of shakes down. But I wasn't impressed.
For me, as an outsider, I look at the England situation and I think whatever happens at the Euros, Gareth Southgate has no excuse, because we've heard the golden generation being brought up before, but really what's coming through now, if you're an England fan, if you're a fan of the English national team, you look at the exciting young talent that's coming through available for Gareth Southgate to use now. And one, you think, wrong manager. Let's be frank, wrong manager to get the best out of this talent. But who would come in? Like, you look at Aidan Boothroyd and the other 21s, and I've got to say, you don't want him ever stepping up to take over from Southgate. So do you really think, before we move on and talk about the Champions League draw, the gents, that, Gareth Southgate can get the best tune out of this group of I suppose, experience and really talented Maddison, Grealish, those type of players coming through?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, he's got an absolute abundance of talent. Some of those lads you mentioned, I imagine one or two of them probably won't go to the Euros. I'll be surprised if Maddison went, given the fact that there's Mount and Foden and Grealish and Sterling and Sancho and Rashford and Kane and then there's people who've kind of faded away a bit. Tammy Abraham, Danny Ings. There's some serious talent there. And you've probably, you're probably going to need a Henderson or Jordan Rice, a Jordan Rice, Declan Rice, sitting there letting them all do their thing. But yeah, that's the other thing I guess I was quite surprised at, is that in my head, he is that guy that kind of gives youth a chance, that he lets the young people play. Young people play. That sounds the young players play, and he's looked at the right backs and he said, I'd rather have 32-year-old Kyle Walker and 30-year-old Kieran Trippier, whereas actually, for me, you should be like, committing to Reece James and Trent as your two, and then the older ones come back in if you need them. But this is a really good generation of young English players, including Trent, who should be given the chance to build a team. And but yeah, I heard Charlie Adam the other day on 5 Live saying that he thinks the Euros are England's to lose. I wouldn't go as far as that, but there's some good players in that squad.